Welcome back to our live video trading series. Today we are talking about speedy coins, coins compete that will compete with Bitcoin for fast transactions. Now I'm talking about transactional coins only. I'm not talking about blockchain builder platforms or wallet coins or gaming tokens or any of those issues, but simply transactional coins that will compete for speed with Bitcoin. Now, why is this a problem? Bitcoin is slow and it is expensive. And let's see what we're talking about here. First of all, it's slow. All right, compare it to obviously Visa with 24, which can do 25, about 25,000 transactions per second. Bitcoin all the way over here does 7 transactions per second, so it's slow. Ethereum at 20 transactions per second, Dash close to 50, Litecoin, Bitcoin Cash at about 60 transactions per second, and PayPal at close to 200. Now, this diagram has Ripple up here at 1,500 transactions per second, but remember, Ripple is not mined, so that means that what Ripple is a bank-to-bank platform that transfers funds through private blockchain channels, but not it doesn't rely on a mining process to produce Ripple tokens. So therefore, it's not really a fair comparison. The transfers in Ripple are instantaneous, and Ripple just guarantees the transactions. So technically, when we're talking about the coins that compete with Bitcoin for speedy transactions, we're talking about these coins. And I put together my speedy transaction, my little speedy transaction micro sector here, and they are Dash, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. So you can see Dash here in purple, Bitcoin Cash in turquoise, Litecoin in yellow, and Bitcoin in blue. So these are the coins that compete for transaction speed and micropayments with Bitcoin. And Bitcoin obviously not winning that. It is digital gold. It is a store of value, but it's not. It's definitely losing the micropayment battle. Now, this is a reason. Here's a reason why you do your own research. Okay, I like this coin checkup site a lot because it has all these categories, and you can look at different sectors. So these are all the crypto coins in the category digital currency. The problem with this is that some of them are too broad and some of them are just not inclusive of the coins that you really want to analyze. Okay, so for example, this is their category of digital currency, and it has Bitcoin, obviously, and Bitcoin Cash, but also has Ethereum, which is a blockchain builder platform, Neo, which is a blockchain builder platform, Monero, a privacy coin, Zcash, a privacy coin. It even has some of the wallet coins on here as cryptocurrencies. Whereas if you go to the payments sector, there's nothing in there. So this is obviously a newer, it's a newer site because they're still in beta. They don't have anything in their payment sector. If you look at micropayments, all you get is Stellar, Byteball, Bytes, and Redcoin. So you really have to kind of build your own categories. At least you can use this as a as a jump off point, as a starting point, and it's great. Like for example, with privacy coins. Okay, so it's great. It's got all the privacy coins that you want to follow in there. Dash, Monero, Zcash, Bytecoin, Verge, Komodo, but and the exchanges, for example, BitShares, Binance. So it does not have, um, it is missing uh, Robinhood. So that's one, for example, and I don't know why it's missing Robinhood. Hold on, let's see why here. COB, when it what it lists COB as is, it says exchange, but for some reason it's not listing it as the in the exchange list. So under the tag. So I don't have a good a good explanation for that. But like I said, use this as a jumping off point, and then build your own categories with it. Uh, Here is my category of micro payments that compete for speed with Bitcoin. And what I was showing you right from the beginning of this video is this is the Lightning Network. This is not a blockchain. This is the Lightning Network, a proposed layer on top of Bitcoin that will supposedly allow instantaneous and very cheap transactions. Okay, now Bitcoin has become, as I said, slow, and it's also expensive. This is the backlog of Bitcoin transactions over the past 6 months, and you can see these spikes are getting higher and higher to the point where the last spike was over 250,000 backlog of transactions on the Bitcoin network. And what you can actually do with this site is eliminate the transactions by price. And as you do that, as they go up in price, you can see that there are fewer and fewer transactions are waiting to be confirmed as you go up to 700, 1,000 satoshis, 1,400 satoshis, and at 2,000 satoshis, there's no more transactions waiting to be filled. But as you go down in price, there's a lot more transactions waiting to be filled, which means that transactions on the Bitcoin network are backing up more and more, and the trend is they're becoming more and more expensive. So the numbers are up to $30 or so per transaction. Not a very practical use case for buying your coffee at Starbucks. So these are Bitcoin backlog in the what's called the mempool, and that is backlog of transactions waiting to be confirmed. Now, when we look at the possible solutions to this, the Lightning Network is what I was showing you. And Lightning Network is basically an off-chain, peer-to-peer system which is governed by smart contracts. And to make it as simple as possible, two people want to exchange Bitcoin. They don't want to go through the blockchain because they don't want to pay $30 and wait for hours. So what they can do is place, if they're going to have multiple transactions between them, they can place Bitcoin into a multi-signature wallet. That's a wallet that requires more than one signature to access. Then the address of that wallet and the balance sheet of that wallet, they agree on how much each one of them owns. Those are placed on the public blockchain. The parties will actually transact off-chain, and they'll sign an updated, using their private keys, they'll sign an updated balance sheet off the chain of how much of the wallet content now belongs to whom. And if there's ever a dispute or the channel is closed, then that mutually signed balance sheet is used to pay out whatever's left in the wallet, and the final balance sheet is saved to the blockchain. So you can see all the transactions that occur between them occur off the chain, and that way they can actually transact without paying the high fees or waiting the long wait time. Now, this is what I was showing you. This is the Lightning Network. And you can see all of these are nodes on the Lightning Network. So they all have these weird names like Spock, Romper, True Vision, Superbolt, Plasmagenesis, Strange Beam. Let's see, there's some kind of weird ones down here. Eternity Wall, Warren Buffett is here. Now, the cool thing about this is it's interactive. If you move one around, you'll get a dynamic movement of all the other nodes that are connected to that, all the channels that connect between that and other nodes. And so you can see exactly how many connections there are and who's connected to whom. And you can click on any one connection and see which nodes are connected. Now, these are Lightning nodes, so they can do almost instantaneous Bitcoin transactions. And like I said, those are governed by smart contracts. And this is a case of unicasting as opposed to broadcasting. Normally, when any Bitcoin transaction takes place, it's broadcast to the entire network. So all the nodes on the network have to see that transaction, and then the individual miners will pick up those transactions and verify them using a cryptographic hash function. So this is unicasting between, in a private channel, between two computers on the node with two nodes on the network without having to use the blockchain to verify those transactions until all the transactions are complete. So it seems simple. It gets a little complicated when you start looking at diagrams like this as far as exactly how the transactions are approved, and there's time locks, and I'll go into that. But the benefits are pretty straightforward: tiny payments, instant settlement, and improved privacy, because the many of the transactions, most or even all of the transactions, are off the blockchain, so they can't be followed on the chain as we looked at when, let's see, we looked at the investigation. This is the investigation into the Mt. Gox theft. And what you can do on the Bitcoin blockchain is you can take any Bitcoin transaction and get all the metadata for that transaction. So these public addresses, like for example B1, okay, nobody knows who owns that B1. Nobody knows the private key that connects to that public address except B1 himself. But it is possible on the network to trace all the transactions going to B1 and coming from B1. So knowing the times, dates, amounts, and destinations and origins of all those transactions, it's easy to follow that money. And that's how the investigators of the Mt. Gox hack in 2014 were able to eventually nail one of the guys who was involved in that heist. So the privacy is improved. The shortcomings of the Lightning Network are obviously if there's a node that's unresponsive now, we're talking about a pretty big network that you're relying on to be responsive at all times. This is not the blockchain where everybody has a copy. Okay, each of these nodes will have to be active and online in order for the transactions to go through the Lightning Network. So if somebody's going, for example, through this guy there's not many channels connected to this one. So if someone is going through and this one is down, that may not be that big a deal. But if this guy, Spock, is down, for example, okay, you can see how that could be a big deal. Or this Sleep Yark, if that person is offline, that could be, if that node is offline, that could be a big deal for the Lightning Network. So it's a little bit, it becomes a problem of centralization, and that is an issue with the Lightning Network superimposed on the blockchain of Bitcoin. Now, remember that Bitcoin has a 1 megabyte block size limit. So there's only a few ways that you can actually improve the speed and reduce the cost of Bitcoin transactions. And this is an off-chain solution. Obviously, it's suboptimal for large payments because there has to be enough money in the multi-signature wallet to cover the payment. And if there's not, then obviously the payment can't be processed. So some of there's another problem with the Lightning Network, and that is that transactions are touted as being almost cost free. Okay, and they may be just pennies per transaction. But the problem is that opening all those nodes, okay, opening all those channels with all those different names that we saw on the Lightning Network costs money, and keeping them open costs money. So here's the Lightning Network again, and keeping all these nodes open, opening them in the first place, and then keeping all of them open is going to be expensive. And how many nodes are going to be kept open, and how is that going to be? Is that cost going to be divided? That's an issue with Lightning Network as well. And this estimate, which is from Bitcoin.com, so the initial cost to open all 781 channels that are open is 3.6 Bitcoin, which is about $40,000. So that's a lot of money to keep that, just to keep that open. And if you look at some of the other news and commentary on the Lightning Network. This one from a Georgetown University research professor, Shinichiro Matsuo, said Layer 2 technologies such as Lightning Network are needed to enhance the scalability of payments over the Bitcoin blockchain, but they might change the trust model, meaning Lightning Network might not be wholly decentralized. And there is a mathematical proof posted here on Medium that says Lightning Network cannot be a decentralized Bitcoin scaling solution. And that mathematical proof that the network cannot be a decentralized Bitcoin scaling solution. And basically, what that proof entails is that, okay, this first diagram on the left would be what a centralized network looks. Okay, that's a bank. Okay, the bank is in the center, and anybody who wants to send money to anybody else has to first send it to the bank, and then the bank sends it to the other person or the credit card company or whatever it might be. So this is decentralized. This is what the Lightning Network looks like right now. All right, that's a decentralized network. Okay, with centralized hubs. That's what the Lightning Network looks like right now. A decentralized network with centralized hubs. So each of these hubs relies on all the other hubs, but the decentralization obviously is not complete on this network. A completely decentralized or distributed network would look like this. And that's what a blockchain is. Every node on the network has a complete copy of the blockchain going all the way back to the beginning and can independently confirm using cryptographic math the validity of every transaction on the blockchain. And that's not the case with centralized hubs and with centralization. Okay, so that requires some third part or some at least the centralized hub to confirm those transactions. And even though these channels are between two hubs, the idea is that you can route your payment through multiple jumps all the way to hubs that aren't necessarily directly connected to the hub you're dealing with. So from here, you could go to here, and then from there you could go to here, and that would be one jump from let's say from so much node to Superbolt to Photon would be one or two jumps. And that is the idea behind the Lightning Network, that anybody could connect to anybody. But this guy who posted the mathematical proof on Medium said that basically what this entails is actually everyone lending to everyone else. And I can see why his argument does hold some sway, because when you're opening channels between nodes and they need to clear payments through multiple jumps, then you can see how some of these nodes would end up kind of being like a bank and having to clear payments and lend money to the guy over here who's trying to send money to the guy all the way over here without the direct connection. Those are essentially loans that need to be settled. So, according to this guy who posted the mathematical proof, that it's unworkable as a decentralized Bitcoin scaling solution. So in other words, he's saying it will end up being centralized. He says that everyone is lending to everybody else. And the reason for that is the network uses time locks, and those are actually, they eliminate custodial risk. So you have to wait until certain payments clear until others can be completed. So those are some of the issues with the Lightning Network. So it is a promising concept as a layer, an off-chain solution to the slow transaction speed, and the high cost of Bitcoin transactions, which is now becoming a problem. And let's see, Stripe just dropped Bitcoin, and who else just dropped Bitcoin? There's a couple of um, uh, Stripe withdrew support for Bitcoin payments. Yeah, that was January 24th, and uh, let's see who else was. Uh, well, there were several um, larger companies that were taking Bitcoin and now are not, and part of that has to do with the transaction speed. It's not practical for uh, payments, and it's not practical from a cost standpoint either. All right, so now looking at bigger blocks, this is just a reminder of when Bitcoin was looking at going to bigger blocks. It has a 1 megabyte block size, and the SegWit protocol was a way of compressing the data. That is, taking the transactions on the blockchain, separating them from the signatures. Normally, these transactions and signatures are stored on the blockchain. And so taking the transactions, separating them from the signatures, and taking those off the blockchain so data could be more compressed. And the second phase of that was supposed to occur in November, and the community could not agree on doubling the blockchain size to 2 megabytes for Bitcoin. So that was when Bitcoin dropped here, and that's when all the other coins that had bigger block solutions started to rise. So you can see Dash in purple, Litecoin in yellow, and Bitcoin Cash in turquoise all started to rise back here when Bitcoin was having scaling solutions where the community could not agree on doubling the block size. And they ended up not doubling the block size, and it's still 1 megabyte. So bigger blocks could be a solution. Several problems with bigger blocks. Obviously, they increase the cost of mining, where they require more memory, and fewer full nodes will be able to be maintained. So decentralization, which was Satoshi's original vision, may be a victim of bigger blocks. And how big can blocks get? Well, there's evidence now that they can get as big as 1 gigabyte and even bigger than that. And so, will bigger blocks be the solution? Possibly, but that remains to be seen. The cryptocurrencies that are using bigger blocks as a solution have been doing well. Obviously the recent market drops, but despite the recent downturn in the market, these coins, Bitcoin Cash, Dash, and Litecoin, if you look at them over a long period of time, let's look at Coin Checkup and look at the currencies. You can see Bitcoin Cash, 90-day return, 112%, Litecoin, 160%, and Dash, 126%. So still doing well over the last 3 months. These coins that use bigger blocks. Okay, Bitcoin Cash has an 8 megabyte block size, for example, and they're processing 8 megabyte blocks right now. So the coins that are using the bigger blocks are doing well. And will Bitcoin go to bigger blocks? Well, in the past they've nixed that idea. Now, the coolest idea coming out in 2018 that I saw a lot of talk about at the North American Bitcoin Conference in Miami is atomic swaps. So we'll go into that in more detail in another post. But basically, exchanges are like massive, um, you know, massive honeypots for hackers. Okay, they concentrate customers' funds, and the customers don't have control. They don't have custody of their assets, and they don't have the control over how the private keys are stored or encoded. So users are not in control of their own private keys, and that makes exchanges some of the biggest hacker bounties out there. A a hack bounty would be like if you give offer a reward to somebody for trying to hack your system in order to expose the vulnerabilities in the security of your system. Well, these exchanges are essentially these huge hacker bounties where the money is all concentrated in one place and the security is questionable. The recent CoinCheck hack, where all the NEM coin on the Japanese exchange CoinCheck was stolen in a single transaction, which was the biggest theft in history, more than $500 million, was basically because the private keys were not multi-signature protected and they were not stored properly. So in place of exchanges, a possibility that would completely eliminate the need for exchanges is if users remain in control of their assets and swaps occur between blockchains. And so that, in other words, you don't need to go to an exchange to exchange Zcash for this was a Zcash Bitcoin atomic swap that was demonstrated recently. So you don't need to go to an exchange to exchange Zcash and Bitcoin. Okay, there's a new tool for exchanging Zcash for Bitcoin called ZBXCAT, and it was described by the co-developer Jay Graber as the walkie-talkie of payments. And there, eventually going to be tools like this that can swap between any two blockchains. So atomic swaps are probably the best solution in the future, and think about the concept of atomic swaps. They solve two of the biggest problems that altcoins are trying to solve right now. One is speed of transaction, and the other is security and anonymity. But with atomic swaps, both of those issues can be taken care of because the transactions occur off the blockchain, and presumably these tools, the atomic swap tools, would be very fast. This doesn't say how quickly the Zcash Bitcoin atomic swap was performed, but the first blockchain inter-blockchain or cross-chain atomic swap was between Decred and Litecoin, and that was last year also. So will this year be the year of the cross-blockchain swap? We will see. But for now, following the coins that compete with Bitcoin for speed and for transaction cost, looking at Bitcoin Cash, Dash, and Litecoin, and ways to speed up transactions on-chain and off-chain. And hopefully this video has given you some powerful, useful information that you can put to work to make better, more informed, more research-based cryptocurrency investment decisions. Ciao for now.